1970, we sure we did live for fruit. Knowledge for selfish, for sure we did do the work. Auditorium to basement of all faculty of law. We did represent, stand tall anywhere we go. We work hard and we shine, commitment, dedication. Neurosurgery, comedy, music, Nollywood. SOTK, Dr. Call, MC Casino. We did represent, stand tall anywhere we go. Great UNIBEN, great UNIBEN, great UNIBEN, great UNIBEN.
Hello, viewers. Welcome to another episode of the UNIBEN Alumni Series. As you know, this is a show where we celebrate alumni of the University of Benin. We hear their story, and we hope that their stories, their journey, inspire current students and also fellow alumni. And today, on today's episode, we have a doctor with us. He holds his MBBS from the College of Medical Sciences of the University of Benin. Is Dr. Samuel Wombi. Yeah, we'll call him Oge. Yes, Dr. Oge. I think can you pardon me for this conversation? I'm more comfortable addressing you as Dr. Oge. Is that
That's
okay?
fine. That's completely fine.
Thank you. Dr. Oge is an addiction medicine physician in the United States. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Oge.
My pleasure being here.
Yeah, let's start from the very foundation. I know you are a proud ambassador of the University of Benin. You had your secondary education from UNIBEN Demonstration Secondary School. You moved to UNIBEN, the university proper, and you studied medicine. What influenced your choice of medicine? What were those factors that made you study medicine?
Yeah, I think receiving training, first of all, in UDSS, I early on had this interest in being able to care for people and just help people through difficult moments. I would also add that I didn't like maths too much. I didn't like I used to do well at maths, but it was like I had to take extra effort to come out on top. So it wasn't a natural fit for me, and I think that made it easy to make that decision to do medicine. So that's kind of like what got me in there.
Okay. For those of us in the humanities, in the social sciences, and all, we usually hear that being a medical student is quite tasky, is quite difficult, and for someone like you, who I know you are sociable. So how are you able to manage this? Because they say they don't go together. But people like you excelled in it. You did well academically, then your social life did not really suffer. How were you able to balance these different endeavors?
So I think it was difficult at first, but I think again, very early on, even when I was in UDSS, I always tried my best to balance out being social and also the academic aspects. And I think for me, one thing I learned early is time management, right? You can play hard and you can study hard. The issue is just how do you plan to pass? How do you plan to prepare? How do you plan to study? So I think because I had learned a lot of those skills a little bit in UDSS, by the time I got to UNIBEN, it was a little bit easier for me to just kind of continue what I had started. Although it was harder in UNIBEN, I'll be honest. I would say my social life kind of had a real decline by the time I got into my clinical years, just because it was harder to find time to do other things, right? Apart from study. But I think, yeah, I think early on, anyone who you feel like at baseline, you're someone who's social, friendly, you like to enjoy life a little bit. I think early on, you have to start planning yourself on how can I pass by doing this? That's preparation.
Okay. Let's go into some peculiar maybe experiences or situations as a medical student. Yeah. How was it like to be a medical student at the University of Benin? The environment was not new to you from UDSS. We were already conversant with the environment, but this time around, you were an active member of the university community now. So how was it for you? How was the medical school? Shuttling between UBTH and the College of Medicine? How was it like generally?
So I would say it was hard. It was hard. It was hard at first. I think one of the most unique things about medical school, especially in UNIBEN, is everyone in the class is like top from their secondary school. Everyone is top 10 or whatever in their secondary school, most people rather. And so, the I think the greatest surprise was like it was like a leveling ground. Like every like just imagine top tens in every single school being in the same class. So who is now the last? So I think that was a really humbling experience, and I think after the first year, by the third year, I think everyone was humble. Everyone was humble. We understood that this is not about who is first, who is second, but more about how much knowledge you can gain in medical school to help you help your patients. And I think it became more difficult as we went into the clinical years. And the reason for that is, the geographical orientation where you have UBTH and you have UNIBEN means that sometimes we had to walk all the way from UBTH down to UNIBEN to catch a class, right? Which means either you're late for class or you have to miss lunch because you have to make it in on time. Because if I remember correctly, classes used to start at like 1 or 1:30, something like that. So I think that was one major issue we had, navigating having classes in UNIBEN. Meanwhile, your postings are in UBTH. With time, it got better. I'll be very honest. I think at some point it got better. We now had a little classroom in UBTH that could contain the full class. So that improved things over time.
Okay. What are some of those influential experiences you had during your time in school that you think actually shaped your career paths?
So it's always surprising to people when I tell them that the thing that really shaped me as a person professionally was being involved in student politics.
Mm,
I know it's kind of like completely off ramp for a medical student as a whole, but um, my involvement in politics taught me human behavior, right? I, I got really close to people, understood that we are all very different people. But at the same time, you have to communicate and understand where someone else is coming from. Even if you don't share the same perspective,
mm.
even if you don't share the same goals, you don't share the same ideals, but you know that you can't achieve anything without the person having a buy-in to what you're doing. So that was a really teaching moment for me. As you know, I was chief whip of the
Mm.
Congress. Then I became Assistant Secretary General. Then I was Secretary General. Then I became president of the University of Benin Medical Student Association. And then I played a little bit of national politics. And I was the South-South Caucus chairman for Nigerian Medical Student Association. And I also represented the Medical Student Association in the international conference in Antalya, Turkey. Um, all of these experiences shaped me, and one other thing is it gave me perspective. It made me know that I could do more. It made me know that I could push out of my boundary. So I would say my political aspect of UNIBEN was really formative for me.
Okay. Just narrated your involvement in student politics, and so what other thing? Because now we can pinpoint that leadership was one of the things you took from the institution. Outside leadership, outside your MBBS certification, what other things did you take from the University of Benin?
It's the comradeship. Doesn't have to do with politics, but I feel like in UNIBEN there was this joy. Like, you know, a lot of we may have been broke, but we were happy, right? And we may have been just innocent in terms of just going through life day by day, right? And I think that really shaped a lot of my positive approach to life. I had it's a place of dreams. Um, Service. I had a classmate who, um, you know, he would know himself when I talk about this story. He worked as a gate man in a bank and also was riding a bike in his first year, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, in his first year of medical school, and that was how he could pay for medical school. And he knew physics a little bit better than me. We didn't know ourselves at all. But he was like, you know what? Let me teach you a few things in physics. Me, I knew the other ones really well, but physics was my difficult part. And, you know, that act of service was an entry point for me in UNIBEN. I think I paid that back. So apart from leadership, I would say the service, people being free giving and charitable with their time, organizing tutorials, organizing discussions, classmate birthdays, sharing recharge card on
Yeah,
WhatsApp.
yeah. It just reminded me of it. It was quite common during
It was
those
kind of
times.
common.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Someone's
That's
birthday
true.
like this, they would buy recharge
Yeah,
card. The person doing the birthday
fastest
is
finger and
the
all
fastest
that.
finger first.
Yeah,
The person doing the birthday himself is broke, but he will look for recharge card, even if it's 1,000. We'll do fastest finger
yeah,
on the group. We would all
yeah,
hustle to get 100 naira credit here and there. Those
yeah.
experiences live with me till today, and I try to implement that in my life in terms of serving my community and people around me. You don't know who you are inspiring.
Okay. You went after Uniben, post Uniben, you went to Harvard, got trained in addiction medicine. What influenced that specialization? Why did you think that was something you could get into and you wanted to know more and help people?
Yeah. So the surprising thing is, and I think this is something that maybe we're a little bit deficient when it comes to medical education. At least let me speak for when I was in UNIBEN. I didn't get enough. I didn't get adequate. I didn't get any. Let me just put it this way: I don't think I got any addiction medicine education, even as a doctor, right? And it was hard for me to even recognize someone who had an addiction, even as a physician or as a medical student, right? When I left medical school and I moved to the US, it became more apparent the issues when it comes to substances. I kept asking myself, wait a minute, it's kind of not possible that I didn't see anybody with addiction in Nigeria. And meanwhile, you're telling me that addiction is like top five or top six medical problems in the world. So the question is it that I'm not looking hard enough? Or there's something about Nigeria that makes us immune to addiction? All right. And I think that was the starting point, questioning myself. And when I did my master's in public health, I did some research into cigarette smoking, and I think I asked myself the question, why do we do things even if we know that it might cause us like cancer or something like that? And
Hmm.
starting off with that question, that's what led me into beginning to think about how I could get addiction medicine training. And then during my medical residency here in Georgia, I saw more patients who had addiction, and they all had one thing in common: they had seen physicians before but never spoke about it. And I think for me, I found out that I could speak to patients easily, and this comes back to what I told you because we see most doctors are protected people, like they're not really in society, they're not very social, so they are very nerdy. I, on the other, I am, you know what I
Yeah,
mean. You
you're
know
out
what I
there.
mean. Kind of. I, on the other
Yeah.
hand, was out there, so it was easy for me to connect with people and speak to
Mm,
them like normal person, not preaching to them. And I think once I built that relationship, I found out it was easy for me to get people to talk to me about their problems, and that immediately made me realize that this was the right pathway for me to help folks. And yeah, subsequently, after I got training, I started
mm,
looking at folks, and now I could see people who had addiction, but they never told anyone. So it was a
mm.
good thing I did the training. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I just want us to shed more light on you mentioning that you never had any course or um, any training about addiction while studying medicine, and we're talking about 10 years ago, about a decade ago now. Don't you think is the I think the Nigerian society has not maybe before now has not really accepted that it's a problem, that addiction is a problem. Yeah, I know you mentioned the statistic that is top five in the world, but I think the Nigerian society before now did not actually accept that addiction is a problem. Do you share in that thought?
100%. There's so much stigma when it comes to addiction, right? There's so much stigma. People don't want to, it's not something you want to talk about
Yeah.
publicly, right? And the problem with that means that you can't seek care, right? Because even if you have an addiction, you can't say, hey, I want to go to UBTH or I want to go to a hospital, because you start thinking, who will see me there?
Mm,
Or, someone's going to report me or someone's going to do that. And because of all of this, people don't even talk about their problems, right? Instead, what happens most of the time, and I'm not saying this is as a blame or anything, because they can also help, is people may go to their pastors first
mm,
when they have an addiction. Now,
mm.
that could be helpful in some cases, but sometimes too is not the complete help that they need. And I think something really has to be done about it, because I can tell you for a fact, don't have statistics, um, but based off on my personal experience since I became board certified in addiction and talking to people back home in Nigeria, there is a huge drug use problem,
Yeah.
right? There is a
Mm,
huge drug use problem. So something needs to be done about it, about
mm.
educating doctors, but also making sure that people don't have the stigma and they feel free enough to seek help when needed.
Yeah, I quite agree with you because if you see the activities of NDLA of now, you see the numbers going to psychiatric for drug abuse and all that. It's quite alarming these days. And thank you for sharing your thoughts on how we can mitigate it, because it's actually becoming a big problem for the young adults, for even adults as well. So let's talk more about mentorship.
Yes.
You were president of BEMSA. I think that's what it's, yes, the Medical Students Association. How is your relationship with the association today? I know this is 10 years after. Do you, yes, do you reach out, or do they reach out, especially when they seek for your expertise, your knowledge, or
Yeah.
guidance? Is there a connection? Is there anything on ground in that aspect?
Yeah, absolutely. I've stayed connected, I think, with most of I would say maybe 90% of the presidents after me. I've stayed connected with all of them in terms of helping, either financially or in terms of advice on how to navigate things. I've always tried to be present for them, especially financially, because I know that's important.
Mhm.
But I also think there's a problem with our associations. Maybe I can say this now that I am on this side of things, and I think that problem is there needs to be a more value based way to enjoy your predecessors or your or your people you consider mentors, right? I think most of the time, most of our associations, like the first time that they would ever reach out to you might be when they need financial support for something. Now, that is not a problem because I completely understand the need for that. But I believe people will be more invested in seeing how best they can help the school. And this applies to all other associations.
Mhm.
If the presidents or the executive maintain a relation that is independent of just financial, right, with previous graduates and alumni, right? So that by the time you're even asking for money, you already have a relationship with the person. So it's not as if it's a border, right? And there are other ways that you think you can help the association that don't have to do with money, right? But I think that's something that hopefully will get improved with time. I'm sure I was guilty myself as president.
Okay. Let's touch on brain drain, which
Yeah.
we are both. Do I say we are guilty, or we are participated in it because we are not in the country right now. But for you as a medical practitioner,
Yeah.
I know there are the basic things. So, oh, we need to get our hospitals working. We need to do something about staff welfare. So how do we? What are the other things that we can do as a people, as a country, Nigeria now, to convert this brain drain to brain gain, as they say?
You see, one funny story I always tell people is that I'm going to use this to start off answering this question. I, I wrote an exam when I was in maybe first year or my last year of secondary school, and I actually gained admission to the US to study pre-med and hopefully get into medicine here with kind of some scholarship. But I was, I'd already done 1 year in UNIBEN. As at that time, there was this pride. There was this, there was this pride. Like I was brimming with so much hope for the country, right? In fact, if you had asked me at that time what I wanted to do in my life, my answer to you would have been to serve Nigeria in some form of capacity, either as commissioner of health or or politics and stuff like. Just there was such a huge Kaka, you know what I'm talking about. Like
because I got sorry if I can. I got admission in, was it 2014 or during service year in Canada. It was quite easy to get the whole process done, but I didn't want it. I just felt there was hope. I just wanted to do something in the country, and made me stay back. Well, at the end, I still left.
Exactly. So and I'm sorry I'm answering this question too long, but our generation, I use our generation because I think we were kind of like just a few years after all things changed, right?
Yeah.
When we were in school, there was such a huge aluta. There was such a huge. Everybody wanted to make things better.
Yeah.
We might have had different ideas of how to do it, but it was always about how can we make things better? Can we bring somebody to this school? How can we protest because generator has gone off in and students are not getting lights? We used to have. Remember in UNIBEN, we used to have light all night between 11 and 5 a.m. in the morning. And if the generator goes off for 2 hours, people have already marched and asked what is going on, right? I'm using it to say that there was a huge will to serve. However, things changed when there was no longer hope that based off on your hard work, you could succeed.
Yeah.
I'm not the kind of person who would beg or, bribe because I want to do something for you. And I think once I realized that it was difficult to get things done on your merit, it was no longer a society that I felt like I could live in. And that was the real thing that made me decide that, I was going to try to further my education out of the country just to have a different perspective. I believe that this brain drain would continue until 2 things or 3 things happen. We have a new national value system. What does it mean to be Nigerian? What does it mean what is the Nigerian dream? We don't have a Nigerian dream right now. The Nigerian dream right now is to get enough money to leave the country.
Yeah.
Right? So until we change what the Nigerian dream is, which is trying to make the country better, then putting our money behind saying that, how do people get paid better? How do people get paid well? Trust me, a lot of people abroad, if they were being paid even less than half of, but the society was supportive of what they are doing, they would prefer to be back home. Why? We miss our families.
Yeah, we miss the communal life. We miss
the communal life. I don't know my neighbors here.
Yeah.
You could stay 2 years and you've never even talked to your neighbor.
Yeah.
So that's my solution with the brain drain. I don't want to even go into technical details. Just those two things first of all.
Yeah. Lastly, I just wanted to speak directly to the medical students in UNIBEN. What was that experience or that particular challenge you experienced while in medical school, and how did you surmount it? I just hope that will get across to them and help someone.
Okay. I think don't just go through school because you are going through school. There's a point that you get to sometimes in university where you are just going through the motion. Like you are reading enough just to pass, right? You are reading enough just to move to the next class. My advice to people is whatever your course of study is, try to be proficient. The world is moving in a different direction. It's not just by how much you can cram and you think it's true, right? At some point, I did very okay in medical school, but I remember I was also at a point, I think maybe in my 500 level, where I felt really tired. I just wanted to just push on and push out, right? But then you realize that everything you learn, it might not seem useful to you in school, but when you leave here, it's part of the education. So my advice to students anywhere, this for medical students and non-medical students, is apply yourselves. The world is bigger than just the University of Benin. Don't just gain knowledge to pass, gain knowledge because you need it to be a well-rounded person. Read things outside of your specialty, outside of your course. Try to be a generally wise and intelligent person, which means you understand what's going on in the world. And most importantly, build social capital, ability to communicate to other people, because emotional intelligence is actually becoming a lot more important than just being book smart. How do you navigate workspaces? That's why some people travel abroad and cannot fit into the culture, right?
Yeah.
So that's my advice.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oge. It has been wonderful speaking with you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Yeah,
No problem.
I've been speaking with Dr. Samuel Oge Nwaobi. Is an addiction medicine physician. Continue to subscribe to our channel. We'll bring you more exclusive interviews of UNIBEN alumni. Bye for now.
1970, we sure we did the forefront. Knowledge for self-peace, for sure we did the work. Auditorium to basement of all faculty of law.